Is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. The world is a very crazy place, as I'm sure everyone has noticed. The debate last night was one of the most hilarious experiences I've ever had. When we get into that, I want to forewarn some of my my viewers and listeners that although I think that once you start mentioning things about eating pets, you probably lost the debate. I didn't find Kamala Harris some sort of esteemed linguist or anything like that. She held her own. There were portions of it that I found cringy or whatever, but I talked to Seymour Hersh, and he wrote an article, and I think that will explain my view of the debate. I think she won. Before we get into that, and there are other things. Something that just happened about 2 hours ago is that Pierre Poilievre said that he is going to call for a no confidence vote against Justin Trudeau, where I would predict Jagmeet Singh will probably end up not whipping his caucus to vote in any way, shape, or form. And therefore, I think that Trudeau might survive the confidence vote. We'll see what happens. With me tonight to discuss all these things, audio only, because he can't make his camera work, is Mr. David Wallace. David, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. How are you this fine evening, sir?
I'm doing well. I know it sucks that I can't see you, but most of the listeners are Apple and Spotify listeners, and they only listen to the show, so don't worry about it too much. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from females who probably want to see those luscious locks of yours, but if you can't get your camera to work, that's just the way it goes.
Well, maybe I'll post a selfie if somebody really wants to see it. That'll turn even the stoutest individual off any romantic thoughts. Trust me, I'm suffering a bit of a cold the last couple of days.
I have a cold too. Listen, you watched the debate last night. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts were that as America becomes more polarized by the day, that the Democratic Party of the United States of America and the Republican Party of the United States of America have the exact two candidates they deserve.
Do you think that, like, okay, you might be a little bit, I'm a bit contrarian when it comes to the debate. I think Kamala Harris won if you put a gun to my head. But when watching it, were you, did you pick a clear winner, or did you only look at it from the perspective of, this two-party system is broken and they're both run by corporations?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look, depending on where you stand, your candidate won the debate last night. It's not a matter of performance so much as it is blind faith in your team. The lies, the misinformation. And when I say misinformation, I mean making statements that go completely against what you voted on. Kamala Harris being tough on immigration, being tough on border security, Donald Trump being, freedom of choice, Operation Warp Speed. I mean, these guys are it's an insult to the intelligence if you look at it critically.
Yeah, but how most people look at it is Biden got removed or removed himself, however you want to look at it. I don't really want to get into those weeds, but Kamala Harris, the vice president, was put in his place. The contrast between Trump and Kamala Harris couldn't be more stark, though. So if we want to get rid of our predispositions regarding the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and just look at it on its face, it was pretty clear who won that debate, wasn't it?
For me, if you say who performed better than the expectations they
That's
had
what I'm asking.
into the debate, I think Kamala Harris certainly exceeded the expectations, but it was a low bar that was set from Sleepy Joe, as what's his name, the bloated twat waffle may called him on many occasions. It's a low bar to clear. She seems semi-coherent and able to outsmart Donald at certain. But that's, I mean, is that
she's
really
she's a rambler. She will redundantly repeat the same phrases as she did last night a half a dozen times about that whole bit about you know we don't want to go backwards, we want to go forward. She said that once, and you're like, okay, well, whatever. That's an interesting talking point. And then she spent the next 3 minutes saying it another five, six times. And it was like, okay, dude. Like I kept on, I was literally watching the debate, saying out loud, as I often do in my own house, as I monologue for various reasons, mostly because I'm being gaslit 24/7. But the other reason is because I'm listening to this person talk, and I'm like, punctuate the point. Economy of words. You already said it. You are representing moving forward. He represents going backward. You don't have to say it in another 5, 6, 7,000 ways before people get the point. You know.
Absolutely. But that's all we seem to get these days from our elected officials platitudes, repeated ad nauseum to such a degree that it leaves their followers stupefied to what exactly is being discussed. It's it's a sort of, how should I put this? It's a sort of magic trick that politics have become for the general public. They repeat these talking points that really have no basis in reality. I don't care about the price of tea in China when inflation is what's really dividing my household. Let's get to brass tacks. What happened to politicians that spoke like human beings instead of debate participants at some high school? Talk to the people at the kitchen table, so to speak. Talk to them in their own language. Tell them about the things that are important to them and how you're going to make those things happen. Simple.
Um, Not to be contrarian regarding Kamala Harris, but Seymour Hersh wrote something today that I thought was pretty compelling, and this is only important because it doesn't matter to me who won or lost the debate. As you said, David, a lot of the the measuring stick for victory is often the performative standpoint. But regarding policy, Seymour Hersh had this to say: "There was one vital area that scared the hell out of me: foreign policy. Harris did not deviate from Biden's horrific and dangerous foreign policy in two areas: his continuing personal and military support for the ongoing Israeli terror in Gaza, and his administration's continuing support in dollars and war goods for Ukraine and its delusional president, Volodymyr Zelensky. There is no brief here for Putin, who chose to be provoked by by the West expansion of NATO to the east, despite American promises made more than 3 decades ago not to do so, and inflammatory language by Biden's foreign policy aides, led by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. What's missing, I think, a lot of times from the political discourse when people talk about the candidates that they're supporting and the candidates that they don't like, is those details about foreign policy, about the economy, about jobs, about things like that. We are such a bumper sticker electorate. And I think it's, people like, Kamala Harris won the debate because Trump said that he likes to eat pets. Well, that's great. But once you get past that, like when you start talking policy, I don't think either of them really gave us anything last night that we could take home and chew on. Do you?
No, nothing of substance at all. It was a 2024 political discourse, which is, um, look at how silly I can make my opponent look. Look at the sound bites or the points I can score. It has nothing to do with any substance at all. There's no policy points discussed. Uh, if Kamala Harris is going to come up and discuss how her foreign policy, how it is going to differ from the foreign policy, which quite frankly is proven to be quite disastrous in the Ukraine. I don't care which side of the equation you're on. We've got dead people. We've got people who've been displaced. We've got the world's economy in ruin. It's a disaster. We're on the verge of war everywhere. Tell me how you're going to on day one, which she's fond of saying. I'm sorry, I thought she's been in office for almost 4 years, but how are you going to differ from this path that has been undertaken by the Democratic Party and Donald Trump? Well, isn't he the same clown who kicked off this disastrous turn of events since 2020? I mean, you're right. There's no discussion on policy, on platform. It seems to be nothing but sound bites.
Just to be devil's advocate for a second regarding Trump and his stance on the Russia-Ukraine thing, uh, I think the first red flag should be that he never mentioned if he would allow Russia to annex any further land inside Ukraine, which was a mistake, I think, on his part.
Yep.
But he did have a good point when it came to the idea of if you think of Vladimir Putin and you think of Kamala Harris, who do you think Putin is going to be more open to negotiating with to an end of this war? And I think it's Donald Trump. Listen, I hate Donald Trump more than anybody that I know. I don't like him, but I think it's important that we at least recognize if there is something that one candidate can do over the other, even if we hate that candidate. And there's something about the one kind of like main point that Donald Trump had, which was that all of these conflicts that were taking place during the Biden administration weren't happening in his administration. Now, you could say that that's luck of the draw, or you could say that that's because as domestic voters are afraid of the unpredictability of Trump's bluster and his rhetoric, I think a lot of foreign governments are equally afraid of that.
Well, sure, but look at it this way on a geopolitical scale. How much worse can things get? I mean, we are on the verge of war everywhere. You can't tell me that it can be any more inflammatory. I mean, this is the entire Ukraine situation, the inflation, the everything that you can think of that has taken place. And it's not just a Democrat. This thing started under Trump's watch. At this point, I believe asking either of these two candidates realistically to be the individual who is going to fix the problems. Guys, these are the arsonists who set the place on fire. I seriously doubt they're here to help you.
Okay, let's move on from that because I get a little bit bored of the debate. Like by the way, the meme game today. Oh, excellent! There were so many good Simpsons memes.
It's crazy. I mean, it was. I have to say, if you want to assign a winner in terms of who won this round, I think that you got to go with Harris. And again, that's not a glowing endorsement. It's kind of like, winning the award for the nicest guy in prison.
Yeah, you know what? And it's worth pointing out that there is like one or two videos of police interviewing people who said that their cat might have been eaten, but they're so isolated that to mention it during a presidential debate is just crazy. You could go to Hollywood right now and find something to mention during a presidential debate that isn't happening at a grand scale in Hollywood. And, like someone fucked a fucking raccoon while the raccoon was eating a chipmunk. It's happening all over our country. No, it happened in Hollywood, down a back alley. Like, relax. It's not that big of a deal.
No, you're right. But for news purposes, really, what we've devolved to, it's basically news by watching two dogs fucking by the side of the road, right? I mean, that's what gets people's attention.
I don't know if anyone's done this, but there were so many Simpsons memes that if someone didn't put out a Cletus meme of eating some sort of weird animal like a dog or a cat, then the meme game on the internet is struggling because that would have been dope. If I knew how to create memes, I would do that myself. I want to pivot to something that I mentioned earlier when we kicked off. And that is that Canada's, this is actually from Fox News, but whatever, you can get it from CBC, it's fine. Pierre Poilievre signals plan for no confidence vote against the Trudeau government. Now, this has a lot of caveats because while Jagmeet Singh did, quote unquote, tear up the coalition agreement, the idea that his party will vote for an election when they are 10 points behind the Liberals, who are 20 points behind the Conservatives, seems a little unrealistic, but stranger things have happened. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just more public posturing, right? I mean, Poilievre gets to go on and make this demand and seen by his supporters as trying to force an election. All the while, he knows that it's not going to happen. Jagmeet Singh is not going to go along with that. Again, he's in it for the money. He wants to get his pension, so he will. And Poilievre, this is what he does. He's been campaigning like this it's like he holds a gun to the head of the electorate. Do this or else. Do this or else. I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little sick of it.
I don't think Polyev. I see. I would disagree with that. I think Jagmeet Singh has all the power here, which is strange because he's one of the least popular leaders in the country. But you know, I think a lot of people have to understand something. I don't like Pierre Polyev. You don't like Pierre Polyev. No one really likes him.
Nope.
But he is an effective politician, and people need to start recognizing. They do the same thing in the states. The Democrats are doing it right now. In fact, they're making the same mistakes that they made in 2016, where they are like just so appalled at the actions and the words of Donald Trump that they can't even fathom why anyone would ever vote for them. When what they should do is pivot to, well, figure out why people would vote for them and then start attacking those bad ideas with good ideas. You
Absolutely.
can't when you do, and Pierre Poilievre is experiencing the same trajectory, which is why I think he's going to be our next prime minister, because people have a hard time separating what they think voters should do with what they are probably going to do. And right now, as it stands, even if the election were held in a year and not 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, Pierre Poilievre is going to win. And a lot of that has to do with liberals who are just so fucking huffy puffy about how this guy should not be our prime minister that they lose sight of the idea of, well, why is he winning? Why
Yep.
is he polling better? It's not only because we have Justin Trudeau fatigue. I'm going to put up something. I think it was David Aiken that posted this, but it says Canadian Liberal MPs wrapped up their 3-day summer caucus retreat in Nanaimo, BC on Wednesday. On the way to these meetings, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he was fired up and ready to battle with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Quote, I can't wait to continue getting into it this fall with Pierre Poilievre, whose perspective is that cuts are the only way forward because I know confident countries invest in the future, Trudeau said. First of all, that means absolutely nothing. Second of all, whether you love Trudeau or hate Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre cleans his clock almost every single question period. That is not Justin Trudeau's strong suit. It just isn't. And Pierre Poilievre is snarky, and because question period is how it is, snarky wins over uh, fumbling, stuttering answers that placate Canadians. Like it just snarky wins. So I don't know why he's looking forward to more question periods when he's going to get destroyed in basically almost every single one of them.
Well, look, I still say he doesn't make it to the election. I'm telling you, I got a feeling this guy's going to get popped. The other shoe that hasn't dropped is Pierre Poilievre wants to force an election as soon as possible because he knows that an investigation is coming into foreign intelligence and interference by foreign governments.
Oh, they'll
And
punt
I
that down
think,
the road till after the election, guaranteed.
well, here's the thing. That cloud, okay, the longer it hangs over him, I still think something's going to break loose. I've heard some voices in the background with some gentlemen that I used to work with who still swim in those sewers. And I'm telling you, there's still a buzz out there. I still say the guy doesn't make it to the election. I don't think it'll matter. I think as it is, I think the conservatives win, and I don't think it is going to matter who sits in the chair, much like when Kathleen Wynne got hit by the Doug Ford tidal wave. Didn't matter if it was Doug Ford. It could have been anybody. She
Yeah.
was going to lose that election.
Jay Kirk says, James, remember that the majority of Canadians do not watch question period. That's a good point. I was only making that point because Trudeau kind of brought that up in his statement where he said he can't wait to do battle. That's really the only place where they do battle is question period. But I get your point. Do you think that, David? Do you think that, first of all, do you still think that Pierre Poilievre is going to make it to the next election?
I don't. I think that when this thing shakes out, I think this story about the foreign influencer fiasco that's going on, I think this is going to become a much bigger story than people think. I think that the our U.S. cousins are going to become more directly involved in the Canadian situation, and I think Pierre. I don't think he makes it. I'm telling you, I don't think he makes it.
And what about the people that may be waiting in the wings to replace Justin Trudeau? Now, it seems pretty clear, and I've talked about this before, and I know I'm right about this, so I'm not going to and I think we agree on this. The Mark Carneys and to a lesser extent the Chrystia Freelands of the world don't want Trudeau to resign because they don't want to be a one and done candidate for the Liberal Party.
They don't want to
So
be Kim
Trudeau,
Campbell. Yeah, they don't want to be Kim Campbell.
that's right. They don't want to be Kim Campbell. So, given that, do you think that Trudeau, what is the wise decision here? It reminds me of Paul Martin in 2011. That was the worst Liberal election. Oh, no, wait, that was Stéphane Dion. Or no, wait, that was Ignatieff. Jesus Christ, how many leaders does this party have? Mikhail Ignatieff led them to their worst showing ever, but he was one of those one and done guys. He only was in one election, if I recall correctly.
That's correct.
What do you think what do you think is happening in the caucus right now? I know you talked to some of the behind the scenes people in the caucus. What are they saying about Justin Trudeau's leadership and the sort of conundrum that they're in with their top tier candidates in waiting not wanting to be involved in the next election?
Well, from what I've heard, the choices that were offered to them, or not offered, but weren't any more appealing than leaving Justin there. Chrystia Freeland is not well regarded by a lot of that. They tire with they see them as a package tied at the hip, and they believe that the defeat would come either way. There was a belief that if he was going to step down, it should have happened a year ago.
Yeah.
At this point, what do you do? Who are you going to do? I mean, how do you dress it up? Bringing Mark Carney in at this point is more window dressing on a house that's burning down.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall. There's going to have to be like a significant shift in the landscape in order for these poll numbers to change. And you know what? I don't know how much the Liberal Party have influence over the speed in which these investigations for foreign interference take place. But I think that if they have any clout, they would be exercising it right now in order to sort of chip away at that lead.
Absolutely. I think it's, but there has been some signs lately moving towards that. I honestly was flabbergasted that the mainstream media finally, after how many years did we report on this, on the foreign influencers? How many years has it been since we talked about how India and Russia were involved in our politics? And here it comes. It comes out through influencers, through people. These are things.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about that because one of the things that the 2016 election left a bad taste in my mouth because the extent in which the Russian interference was reported was a million times more aggressive than the reality was on the ground. And this is what empowered a lot of conservatives to agree with Trump saying it was the Russia hoax. When you look at the Trump dossier, and most people remember one thing from the Trump dossier, and that was the golden shower thing with the prostitutes. And there was a handful of other things, and none of that materialized in regards to supportive evidence. So I get a little worried when the thing that happened in the States with Tim Pool and other journalists saying that they're working directly for the Russians. I don't like Tim Pool at all. I think that, and I said this 2 years ago, that I thought he was compromised. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it was an ambiguous label, compromised, because what I noticed was a person who noticed his analytics when he started criticizing the left. And this guy was a Occupy Wall Street reporter. He was a liberal. He was a progressive. And when he started criticizing his own side, he noticed his analytics explode. Because if there's one thing that you can say about conservative or mega crowd people, especially in the online or digital space, it's that they are loyal, like readers and listeners to people that say the things that they like to hear. So Tim Pool saw the writing on the wall. He was criticizing people on his own side. Our audience exploded, and he just kept going with it. I don't know if that means that he was going against his principles or not. I strongly suspect it was him going against his principles.
What principles?
Well, whatever. But he's he was an independent guy. He wasn't like a mainstream like heavyweight. He turned into one. I think he has 2 million followers now. Like he was just a guy like honestly, he was a guy like me, like 10 years ago, and then he exploded. He chose a side. Now I can give him all the flack that I want for choosing a side, but the way that the FBI put out their report, they made it seem like it was unbeknownst to them where the money was coming from. And so no, but the reason why I think that's important is because as a person who's been involved in freelance or independent journalism for about 20 years, I can tell you that there have been times I worked for the Post Millennial. I didn't know that the Post Millennial were funded by conservative operatives. I mean, I knew their content slanted that way, but when I worked there, I had no fucking idea that the same people that were running like Stephen Harper's campaign were funding the Post Millennial. And when I found out, I left.
Absolutely. But if you look at it, James, a guy at Tim Pool's level, once he started bringing in those kind of numbers, at that stage, he has to be in on it. Because if he's not, then they're not getting return on investment. It makes no sense. I've helped these guys before put them together with entertainers or with politicians or whoever. Trust me, when a certain dollar threshold is crossed, there has to be buy-in. This isn't a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's this is what we want. This is what you get.
Yeah, it was $100,000 a month allegedly that Tim Pool was getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, by the way, in podcast numbers, that's a fucking shitload of money.
That's a shitload of money, and there's no way in hell that these boys, listen, there's no way Ivan back in Moscow is pulling off $100K a month for somebody who's not prepared to sing the sweet music from the script that they're writing.
I'd just like to let Russia know, if you're listening, that if you need someone to peddle your talking points for $100,000 a month, I'm your guy. I would do it. As long as I'm allowed to be funny about it and disclaim everything at the end of every podcast. So,
well, there you go. You can't.
I don't think I'll be getting a call. We'll see what happens.
I can't fly there anymore. I'm on a list now, apparently.
Oh, so is Christina Freeland. There's rumors
Funny
about
enough, I remember her when she was on the list in '94, seeing her at the airport. Yeah.
Well, there's rumors about Christina Freeland, about the conservatives chomping at the bit to dig up dirt about her. Do you know anything about that?
Well, yeah. If you saw the Klondike Papers, there's a series of emails between myself and Kirill Kalainin going.
Can you explain who Kirill is?
Kirill was the press secretary of the at the Ottawa embassy of the Russian Federation. He was expelled, I believe it was in 2019, was it? 2018, 2019, for suspected espionage activities. And he now resides in Moscow and is the head of the North America section of the I guess you could call it a circus, so to speak.
And so
he's a spook. He's a spy.
He's a Russian spy.
He is he was a Russian head of section, but now he's a Russian spy. That's exactly.
And where is he right now? Where does he live?
He's in Moscow.
Okay.
He's the head of the North American desk. But there's an email in that very pile where he sends a document and also several other documents pertaining to Chrystia Freeland and her activities as a pro-Ukraine, anti-Soviet Union, and later Russian Federation activist.
So the idea was that in the 80s, Chrystia Freeland, and this is public knowledge,
late 80s,
helped
specifically 89 through 94.
Right, and helped invigorate a Ukrainian revolution against Russian controls.
Yes, that they believed was being spearheaded by financial interests outside of the United States, a European gentleman who I'm sure everybody knows his name.
Who?
He's George Soros.
Oh, every time I hear that name, I think of Santa Claus now. Like
Yeah,
it's become such a meme. It's like, oh, George Soros
Christian
puppeteering.
Freeland and George Soros are not exactly popular in the Russian Federation.
No, but the George Soros thing. Every time I hear his name from, especially from conservatives, I get a little bit like, oh god, here we go again. You know, like when liberals mention Rupert Murdoch or something, it's just like, okay, relax. It's gonna be okay.
Oh no, it's look, at the end of the day, Kirill was very friendly, and MSM journalists in Ottawa were extremely friendly with Kirill. You could look back over the newspaper articles, the interviews that came out. Kirill was a very, very big conservative government proponent and had specific involvement, to my knowledge, with Pierre Poilievre on a number of different occasions.
Well, listen, I think that the entire world is a political circus right now.
Absolutely.
I think you would agree. I don't know when the next Canadian election is going to be. I don't know who's going to win the American election, but if someone put a gun to my head, I'd still say Donald Trump because I see the American media doing the same things that they did in 2016, which is clutch their pearls at every controversial thing Trump said, which obviously didn't work before,
Nope.
and create this idea that it would be impossible to even imagine a Trump presidency. And these are things that it's like deja vu. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the one thing that the Democrats have going for them is that it appears that in some of those swing states, the abortion issue might play out to be more of a positive for the Democrats than the Republicans. But other than that, I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't either. I think this is going to be, again, it's from all outwards appearances in terms of where the economy's at, the general sense of unease and frustration in the country. I would say that it's going to be a Trump victory. However, you never can tell in these times. And honestly, the same thing on this side. Look, I think there's a real possibility that neither one of the people who are leaders of these parties will be the leaders at the time of the election. We could have a scenario where Polyev and Trudeau are both gone. It's wide open. It's very interesting and strange times right now. But people who are liberal voters need to understand one thing. There's a delusion going on amongst the ranks right now that somehow, some way, everything will turn around in the polls and people will realize that the ideas and the initiatives of the liberal government are good for Canadians, and these people will not vote for Polyev. That's not going to happen. And unless
Yeah.
people understand that and really make realistic plans on how they're going to move forward or how they're going to choose to fight this blue wave, they're going to lose. I just think that there's a sense of what's the word I'm looking for here? Delusion going on.
Well, I think you're right. I think, as I stated before, that sometimes voters get so caught up in what their fellow voters should do that they don't spend any time looking at what their fellow voters will probably do.
Absolutely.
So they,
100%.
yeah, so you can't get caught in that because both sides get caught in that. By the way,
Absolutely.
that's the only bipartisan commonality that the electorate has. Is
Ain't
that
that a
is that
shame?
yeah, is that it's and it's crazy because it's like, listen, like we know that like I made the comparison before with Trump and Polyev. I get all the criticisms of Polyev. I get the snarkiness and the rhetoric and the shit that he says that isn't true and like the divisiveness and everything like that. But you can't fucking get caught up in the morals of what he's doing. You have to fucking start battling these bad ideas with good ideas because if you get caught up in like, well, how could anyone vote for him? You've already lost.
Absolutely, you're right. It's like in a schoolyard. Look, once you've been punched in the mouth, you don't stand there and say, "How could he punch me in the mouth?" You fight back.
And the conservatives do too. How could you vote for Justin Trudeau? He's so smarmy and fake and phony and a liar and like corrupt. And it's just like, dude, you don't look at like why you wouldn't vote for Trudeau. You try to figure out why someone else would. And you know what? Maybe the problem is that we don't, just like we vote people out and don't really vote for people. Maybe that's really the issue. It's like we can't imagine ever voting for the other guy that will just turn a blind eye to all the shit that our guy does.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. What a
David
pickle, huh?
What's that?
What a pickle.
Yeah, it is a pickle. David Wallace, we're going to do this once a week again now that I'm back on track. Thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. I'll give you a call after the show.
Absolutely. Tally ho.
All right, buddy. I don't know if I posted the right link or not. I tried to post a link that you could post on your own page in order to like broadcast this show. But there's been a girl named Shirley Zabolotny that's been in my green room since the beginning of the show. I'm just going to take a shot and see if she's there. Shirley?
Yes.
How did you get how did you get this link? Is this what I posted when
I just followed the link that you had on Twitter. And so this wasn't how to follow this?
No, Restream was what told me that I could post this link and then other people could take that link and post it themselves on their Twitter page and they could broadcast the show.
Well, I just went through the prompts through Google and this is where I ended up.
Well,
sorry about that.
Don't be sorry. Thank you for watching the show. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your interesting show, and I'll watch again on another.
Where are you from?
Way. All right, thank you.
Okay, bye. I asked her where she was from, but she didn't hear me. But that's okay. Okay, that's a weird thing. But that's okay. She seems nice. David is always interesting to talk to. I am back now. John Spencer, urban warfare expert. I talked to him today. We're going to figure out a story or a show sometime in the near future. I will do a Casual Friday this Friday. I'm going to do that thing that I wanted to do for the last 2 months. But due to circumstances beyond my control, actually, I shouldn't say that. Even if you're being electronically harassed and gaslit, you should still live your life according to your values and to your own schedule. So what I did was that I allowed the people that were harassing me and gaslighting me for the last couple of months to thwart me from putting out a podcast. And now I'm like, fuck them. I'm going to put out a podcast 4 times a week. So we had Spenny yesterday. We had Old Boy Rhymes last week. We had David Wallace tonight. Tomorrow, hopefully, we'll have John Spencer. If not, Friday, we'll have Casual Friday. And you'll see 4 podcasts a week. I've decided that if I can't book a guest, I'm going to do a half-hour solo show and just talk a bunch of shit and see how that goes. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll see you later, and we'll see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackmore. 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 Blackmore.